Hello my friends, let's talk about books again. My initial idea of this video was that I would film short clips here and then when I finish a book, but yeah, that didn't go to plan. I've started editing my other clips I made this year and it's just becoming a mammoth of a video, so it's gonna become a short series of videos. Future Ieva will tell you how many parts there is, and I'm just gonna do a week of what I read in 2020. Hi, it's Future Ieva here. I finally finished the rough cut of what I read in 2022 and it is over an hour long. It must be my personal record. But don't worry, I'm not gonna make you sit through an hour of me rambling, and I'm also not gonna attempt to render an hour-long video. So, welcome to a 5-part series. In this episode, I will talk about A Fault in Our Stars by John Green, Power of Dawn by Sarah J. Maas, Silverörum by Kristina Zabalowskaite, and The Cabinet of Calm, Soothing Words for Troubled Times by Paul Anthony Jones. So back to past Ieva and her endless ramblings about books. I'm already 7 books into this year and this is the first time I'm sitting down to talk about them. First book I finished in 2022 was The Fault in Our Stars. I read it on my Kindle. It was the first book that I read in Lithuanian, I want to say after a 5-year break. I've been reading stuff online, but not an actual book. So it's like really hard to explain what sort of emotions and feelings I had when I started reading this book. But the fact that I read it in 3 days, I think it shows that I really enjoyed reading in my native language. This is gonna be an ongoing theme because yeah, this year I've realized that I really miss reading in Lithuanian, so I've been actively searching for ways to read more in Lithuanian. One of the ways was just getting this. Yeah, so I read The Fault in Our Stars and I think that the story was okay once I was able to get over the translated names, because that was the thing I forgot that Lithuanian translators like to do. They like to translate people's names and they end up sounding like really weird. So once I got over that, it was quite enjoyable read. It is a young adult fiction book and that's why it's quite easy to read. It's quite lighthearted, even though the main theme of it is the girl that has cancer. I don't think I ever read a book where the main character had a terminal illness, so that was in a way refreshing and interesting and unexpected to read. And I think the friendship between the main girl and the boy was pretty sweet and I quite enjoyed it. So as I mentioned, the main character, she does have cancer. I don't remember what sort of cancer does she have, but she has to use an oxygen device to survive. And the book begins where she goes to a sort of a support group where she actually meets the boy, the love interest. And yeah, they start talking, then they start sharing book and movie recommendations. Then they start hanging out, playing video games. It's absolutely the sweetest thing ever. And yeah, they eventually fall in love. And I don't know how it's possible, but even though it was such a heartbreaking thing to have cancer in the background of the whole story, it still managed to remain really sweet and lighthearted. I don't know how you can have both of those words in the same sentence, but this is just how I felt about this book. And yeah, well, eventually some things happen. Some of the plot twists were really predictable, and then in the end some very sad plot twists happen, and I think the book should have ended at the very last plot twist. This might include some spoilers, so skip forward if you don't want to hear spoilers. The ending did leave me a bit confused because when the main and the saddest plot twist happened, it was a tragedy, but the main character, she kept talking about things in her like sarcastic teenage manner. I mean, it didn't convince me that whatever was happening was tragic enough, because she just carried on just being sarcastic and just being a teenager. It sort of ruined the tragic bit for me. Overall, I had a really good time with this book. That was A Fault in Our Stars. The second book I read in 2022 was Tower of Dawn. And where do I start with this? This is such a massive book, first of all. When I picked it up, I did feel like really overwhelmed. So you might be wondering what's the deal with all the tabs over there. So I've seen a girl on Instagram, I think she's called The Lost Library. She gave an advice that if you want to get through a thick book, mark all the chapters with these tabs so you could visually see how far you've gone through the story and how far you're left. But I mean, just it's ridiculous when you look at this book. How many chapters does it have? It's just weird. People have been asking me if I've been like marking like quotes on This is really not the book where you would find any quotes that you want to mark. It did actually help, the tab system. It did help me, and I will definitely be doing the same with some other like thicker books. Yeah, so I do have love and hate relationship with Throne of Glass series. I really enjoy the first, like, I want to say like 3 books. The only reason why I picked up this book because I was convinced that it was the last one in the series. Like, I really thought that it was. And yeah, I thought, well, I'm way too far into the story and this is the last one. I have to read it. But surprise, surprise, there is another. Yeah, I am really like contemplating if I want to read the other book in the series, because it might not even be the last. It is currently the last in the series. Last time I checked on Goodreads. But she might release another one, just for the sake of it, I guess. Yeah, so I had multiple issues with this book. I didn't really like it, mostly because it just follows 2, like, I want to say side characters from the main story. So just call the other books the main story, because this really, Tower of Dawn really felt like a spin-off. So it follows just 2 not really important characters, which I didn't even like that much in the main books, so I didn't really care about them, and reading such a thick book about them was absolutely weird. And also another thing that really made me wonder if I want to carry on with this series was that I couldn't tell the characters apart from each other. Like, they all sounded the same, and if you removed the names, I couldn't distinguish them between each other. So that was like really annoying. And the pacing of this book was so slow, and even when the action happened, it just felt unnecessarily stretched out. And I think it's probably only like a handful of things that happened in the whole book that actually matter for the main story. So I just felt like I wasted my time, and it took me like a long time. I think when I got halfway through the book, then I started like getting suspicious that this is not going to be the last book. This is not ending any of the things that were happening in previous books. But I was already halfway through, so I thought, well, I might just suffer through. Once again, I'm not sure if I'm going to finish the Throne of Glass series. It's like so annoying. I was so determined when I picked up this one. I was so determined that I'm gonna finish the series because, well, I thought it was the last one, but yeah, it wasn't. This was the next book I read. It's the book by a Lithuanian author. Like, I couldn't tell you the last time I read a book by a Lithuanian author. It was probably back in school when I was preparing for exams and things like that. So I heard good things about this author and her series of books, and I thought, well, I'm just gonna give it a try, and I just went blindly into it, and honestly it's becoming one of my favorite ways of choosing a book. The less I know about the book, the more likely I will enjoy it. The title of it, the Silva Rerum, it stands for a special book that Lithuanian noblemen used to have, and they used to pass it on for other generations, and they just used to write like important dates, important events, just anything that happened in their family that is important to pass on to other generations. They used to write that. So it's sort of like a diary of a family. The first book of the series, it does follow a family of Lithuanian noblemen, which are not like very rich and powerful, but also not poor. The book starts pretty slow, and I think it took me almost halfway to actually start caring about the characters. But once I started caring about them, there was no turning back. Like, I was sucked into it. The last third of the book, I couldn't put it down. It was just so thrilling, so fascinating. I loved it. I really enjoyed how the author combined some like historical events, historical characters and places with some things that are just so down to earth, like emotions and feelings about falling in love and things like that. And it's just, I don't know, it was so cool. Yeah, I was like really excited when I finished it, and I was so ready to pick up the second one, which I actually already read, and I will talk about it a bit later. So yeah, overall this was like really enjoyable book. Just, I only wish that the first half of it was a bit like not so slow. So yeah, other than that, brilliant book. And then we have this very sweet non-fiction book. That was like, I do have a tendency, I do gravitate towards books that have gold foiling on them, or like any sort of metal foiling on them. I just think they look absolutely beautiful. So this one as well, I think it looks just stunning, so simple but yet so beautiful. It is what it says what it is. Like, it's a book that has words for, as they say, for troubled times. It was okay. It sort of like follows a formula. They give you a like a negative term, negative situation, explain that a bit to you. Then they give you a positive version, the opposite of what was the first term. And that's how they do it. I mean, I wouldn't be able to pronounce the majority of those words. I'm just gonna show you. Yeah, that's the list from contents. You can have a look. Like, there's no way to pronounce those words, and there's no way to use them in your day-to-day life. But yeah, it was like really cool. I didn't expect it to be so language based. I did enjoy some of the little stories that were included with some of definitions, but not all the words got it. So some of them, they did feel a bit dry, because you would only get a definition of negative and a definition of positive. Overall, it was quite an interesting read. Oh, I also collected quite a lot of quotes from this book. The way I like to mark quotes from a library book, you can't really like mark them with pencil or pen because it is a library book. So what I like to do, I just like to take a photo of the page that the quote is in, and then I just like to go into edit and underline it. Sometimes I go on Instagram and do it on the stories, and I can share it with others that way, and it saves it on the archive, and if I wanted to get back to it I could just open that and read that. That one had quite a lot of nice quotes, mostly because it was mainly definitions and I just liked some of the definitions. Oh hey, it's me again. I thought I will give you a sneak peek of books I will talk about tomorrow. In episode 2 I will talk about Silverarum 2 by Krystyna Sabadowskaite, Orphan Monster Spy by Matt Killeen, Sleeping Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro, and Mad About the House by Kate Watson Smith. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope I will see you tomorrow for the episode 2 of this What I Read in 2022 series. See you then, bye!